Welcome to the Rich Flow of Life podcast. Join Valerie Kanay, the award-winning authority author, as she takes you on a journey for your personal evolution. Valerie Kanay talks to enlightened featured guests who hold the keys to unlock your unique life situation. They each bring to the table their very powerful personal spin to inspire and empower you to learn to step up your game into the rich flow of life.
Well, hello, everybody. This is Valerie Kanay, and today our featured guest is John King, who I'm so proud, pleased, and honored to have joining us. Oh my goodness, this is for real, some heavy-duty stuff that we're going to be talking about today because John has become internationally known as the addiction survival expert. Therefore, he's the award-winning author of the book Victory and Surrender, and it's all about the top 10 ways to overcome your addiction. You see, it's been many moons ago. You could have easily described John as an all-out, bust-out, knockdown dope fiend. But understand this, his story didn't end that way. He have overcome into recovery for over a decade. Now, this is what we want to shed some light on because here we go. John lives a successful life now. We're talking about from zero to hero. Although John is not a doctor, he does not give medical advice. He's just sharing his story of being in recovery for, like I said before, for decades. You know, what I really love about John, I'm just going to really say this, is that he's been married to his sweetheart for 31 years and they have really three incredible, beautiful, healthy children who John tells me has never been, seen him drinking or drugging. But his message is straightforward, it's smooth, it's simple, and it's plain. And addiction with drugs and alcohol is a battle. And what John wants to let us know is that you don't have to be alone in that battle, in your addiction. You don't have to be alone in your recovery because we all know someone. Or we may be the one, or at some point in our lives, we will know someone who want to turn things around. And John is here to encourage those who are suffering from addiction to do just that. So this demon, you don't have to fight alone, and you don't have to try to figure it out anymore. You can get rid of your shame, your guilt, and have it be into a new way of living. And on that note, I want to say welcome, John, to our program.
Well, thank you very much, Valerie. I really appreciate it. You couldn't put it in a better way. I think the only thing we were short of is letting people know that literally millions of people suffer from drug and alcohol addiction every day. And as we speak here on Valerie Kanay Talks, there are actually millions more that are in some stage of recovery. And it is just an epidemic proportion. I live in the city of Chicago. I grew up in Uptown, and Uptown is, when I grew up, was one of the most mixed neighborhoods on earth. We had Russians, Vietnamese, all kinds of different ethnicities, and drugs were very plentiful. My mother was addicted. My father drank my entire life. My brothers did the same, and we did nothing but get into trouble from it from a very, very young age. I spent my entire childhood, adolescence, young adulthood, addicted to drugs and alcohol. And of course, with that came all the negativity, all the stealing, all the fighting, all the jails, institutions, and everything else that went with it. I finally ended up in the military. I thought maybe I would be able to change things because my neighborhood was out of hand and my brothers were out of hand and I had to do something. And of course, I took me with in that geographical. And that surely didn't help because, once again, Vietnam had just ended and we were, all addicted to something, whether it be drugs, alcohol, and I thought I fit in perfectly. My brothers were years older than me and we would mail stuff back and forth. We did a lot of negativity. And once again, I got in even more trouble with, I was incarcerated, institutionalized a couple of VA facilities. I was court-martialed looking at 25 years. And it was the first time I was ever honest and said, yeah, I got a problem with drugs and alcohol. And, I said my problem was I got caught.
No, that's what. Thank God for getting caught, huh?
Well, and you're right to a certain extent because that's all I knew. You know, when I grew up as a young boy, I didn't have Oprah, I didn't have Dr. Phil, I didn't have these people to make me realize that this dysfunction in my family was, was normal in a lot of areas. You know, I thought I was so unique. You know, I was abused as a child, I was angry, I was bitter. You know, death to me was a better, life. And the reality is I couldn't put that sword down from that addiction. And the reality even as I got out of the military, I got into more trouble, spent, another decade and a half, really addicted to drugs to the point we were, shooting dope. Alcohol was always in our system. And then after the last time I was institutionalized, I was in a straight jacket, strapped to a gurney, wheeled into a hospital that the VA wouldn't take me because I'd already been to 3 different VA hospitals. They said, John, why don't you go to a place by your house? The ambulance took me over there. I was suicidal, homicidal. To me, I grew up in an environment that death was a better option.
Oh, my goodness. Okay, I get the picture, John. That's some heavy, like I said, this is the real deal here. We're talking about some real serious stuff. So now we get the picture of the destitution, the negativity, the downward spiral that went on and on, circling out of control. Finally get caught. Okay, now you got caught. Now we have to make some decisions to turn this thing around. What was the breaking point, the turning point, where you said no more?
And that was, just like I was saying, being wheeled into the gurney, and the doctor came out and said, John, what's going to be different this time than all the other times before that you've been in this situation? And, now I'm working on 25 years of recovery. I really, I ponder that thought, but I do realize that there's a bigger and better opportunity to help other people. And through decades later, especially in my recovery, I'd met up with some very powerful people in recovery. Monsignor McDermott from the Haymarket House in Chicago. He had heard my story after I had about 11 years of sobriety and clean time, asked me to sit on the board of his intervention instruction, which was the only online licensed DUI program in the state of Illinois. And he says, John, you really got to tell your story. And then we ran into Raymond Aaron, who helped us put together our book. And that's really where I met you, Valerie. And you really encouraged me in a lot of ways to pursue this even further. The book was one thing, but now we're putting together a crowdfunding campaign. We want to put this programming in digital format because what we find out is I'm very fortunate to be in a very busy area of all kinds of 12-step meetings, things of that nature. But there's people all over the world that battle addiction that have never seen anybody with 25 years of sobriety. Look them in the eyes and say, hey, please, first admit you have a problem and then realize you're not alone in this. You're not unique. Your story is not unique. It has been told 1,000 times. There's similarities in everything we do when it comes to drugs and alcohol. And then the fact of just being able to set that sword down, which is so hard. I fought this my entire life because I could never tell the truth. It was always somebody else's fault. It was, this happened to me. That's why I did this. I was abused. I did this. Nobody loved me. I did this. My mother died in my arms asking for a drink. My father bled to death from cirrhosis, on and on and on. And you know what? The reality, Valerie, is that story is very similar to what I hear from other people that I work with in recovery. Like you said in the beginning, I'm not a doctor, but I got 25 years of clean time and recovery, and I'm telling you, I got a real good idea what we need to do to stay sober, and that's what encouraged us to write the book, The Victory and Surrender, Top 10 Ways to Overcome Your Addiction.
All right, now. So now let's jump in there, John, because my podcast is short. So I'm gonna navigate a little bit here what I do want to hear from you about, because it is best, like you said, you're not a doctor, but you have learned a lot of things, and you work with many doctors in an intimate setting for your own addictions to become in recovery and become clean. And who best to learn from than someone who knows what you feel, and you know exactly what they feel. Like you said, the shame, the guilt, the excuses, the lies, the cover-ups, all of that. And that's very real too. You don't want to downplay nothing, because those feelings are very real. And that's what keep a person hooked in there,
Absolutely.
So you really have to acknowledge those things. But what you are saying, I hear it loud and clear, is that it doesn't have to be your reality any longer. There's help now. There's people out here like yourself that know what they're going through, where they are in that battle, anywhere from the beginning stages to the middle phases to your coming out stages, and also the people that's what do you call it when you relapse.
Absolutely,
Okay,
yes,
there's
yes.
a place for you too, because you were doing good, you were coasting well, and all of a sudden that relapse. So John, talk about the 10 ways to overcome, at least highlight some of the main critical ones.
Oh, sure, absolutely. I'd love to. But, just to point on what you were saying with the relapse, it took me 15 years to put 1 year of sobriety together. From the first meeting when I was 18, from the time I finally set the sword down when I was 33. The reality was, is you turn around and you're absolutely right. The first thing someone has to come is at least admit they have a problem, no matter what that addiction is. The second thing we look at is setting that sword down, what we talked about, because we fight it all the time. It's like walking around life with a mirror, pointing our finger at everybody else and blaming everybody else. And then realizing that, we are the problem. I was the problem. Every time I, got in trouble, I was drinking or drugging.
Right. Every time.
Every time. Now, I didn't get in trouble every time I drank and drug, but every time I got in trouble, arrested, whatever the case was, I was drunk or on dope. And the reality is I had no idea where to start. And that's where, we help you out in the book and really point you in a direction, no matter where you are in the world, to help you really, set the sword down and get some help right away.
So bring it on home. Let's get into the help phase of it. How do we get this help?
And that help a lot of times comes from, I journal a lot. I write down the things I've done, people I've heard, the good things that have happened. That's part of what I do with the help and things of that nature. Like I said, being in a large municipal area like Chicago, there's 3,500 AA meetings alone, let alone heroin associate meetings and cocaine anonymous meetings, all kinds of different meetings that we have in a big rural area like New York, Chicago, LA. But there's so many places, small towns that may have one meeting every other day. And I might owe my dope man money, who's all of a sudden sitting there waiting for me, knows where I'm at, and I don't go there. So we're trying to develop that online programming, those videos, to really help people with these 10 ways to overcome your addiction.
Cool.
And that's strategies that we have that we didn't have 25 years ago. And I learned that the hard way, because my last fall was through a DUI. And I ended up getting a DUI, getting arrested, and that's what set me off to the jail again and the hospitals. But what I see now, sitting on the board of Intervention Instruction online DUI program, today you can actually learn about it online. Get your certificate for your judge, go there, and you're not humiliated sitting in a room with a bunch of other people wondering who knows me. Because, the ego, we fight with our ego every day. And that's the hard part, and it's very difficult to learn anything from that point. But it does take work. I'm not going to lie. And part of that was journaling. Part of that was changing the places I associated with, the people I associated with, and the things I did. I had so many habits that I couldn't even control what I was doing. I had no idea. I was like an animal in a cage with just my addiction. But then once I started to write things down and look at what was really going on and being around people in recovery, being around, meetings and rooms of people and talking to people on the phone, things like that, I realized that, what, Valerie, I'm not unique anymore. That, wait a minute, if John did this and John set this sword down and this bust out dope fiend alcoholic can do it. And no, not for nothing, we now have become an author. We've written music before. I have a great job with the city of Chicago. I do a lot of great things nowadays, reaching my hand out to help other people. And we're going to continue to do more. But this all came from being able to realize that I was no longer unique in this world of addiction.
Mm-hmm. And, John, that's incredible, because people really do have to know that you really are not alone. And they say, okay, John, okay, Valerie, Kanay, y'all talk all that junk and everything. And that's good for you guys. You're on your way in your life and all, but I'm here, I'm suffering. I don't know the things you know about. I haven't written any book. I haven't gone to these courses and classes that you're talking about. I'm here drinking like a fish, doping like a whatever. They're into this state. They have not made step one yet. What is the first step for the person that's saying, tell me the first move to make? What's the first thing?
first move to make is really get sick and tired of being sick and tired.
Okay, I'm sick and tired of being sick and tired. Now what?
Well, you got to realize you got that problem. A lot of times you can go to a hospital and tell them what the situation is, and they have a whole range of programs that they could put you on, whether it be in-house recovery, outpatient recovery. Not only that, usually we're so worn out medically, physically, that the hospital is a great place to start, especially if you're in a place that, doesn't have accessibility to any 12-step program or anything like that. A lot of times you can go there and just listen, depending upon what your situation is. That's why a lot of kids nowadays are really dying from heroin. Not necessarily because it's even better, but the reality is they'll go into rehab and they'll clean up for 30 days. They'll come out and they'll use the same amount. And the body can't take it anymore, and they go to sleep, they end up regurgitating on their food or whatever they had, and they end up dying and choking to death.
So it's pretty bad.
It is, and the kids nowadays are starting it's easier to get heroin nowadays than it is even marijuana. And the reality is, how do we stop all this nonsense?
And what do you mean, John, when you say the kids? Are these teenagers you're talking about?
Yeah, a lot of times I deal with teenagers. I'm talking about 16, 17, 18-year-old men and women that start with some medication in the bathrooms, in the cabinets of friends' houses, stuff like that, passing that around. Then all of a sudden they get hey, here's an easier way. They start snorting some heroin, and then that's not enough. And then somebody introduces them to intravenous shooting it up, and then now you're off to the races. And they didn't go through this progression that we did. By the time I had to shoot dope, there was a limited amount of people, and I was a bust-out dope fiend. Now these kids are from suburbanite. You'd never know that they even had a problem. They got all the money in the world and all this. It looks like it from the outside, but inside they're so fearful, so scared, and so addicted that suicide is looking like a better option. And
Isn't
really,
it something?
a lot of it is happening because of the addiction. They don't know how to start to get help or even ask for help. Men don't want to ask for help anyway.
That's right. So what about these type of people? That's a good point, John. For the ones that are still young, they can't check themselves into a hospital because then their parents would know. Or for the first timer who knows they have a problem, but they can't just go into a hospital and say, hey, look, help me, I have a problem. What can these type of people do if they happen to come across a type of podcast like what we're doing here, and they say, oh my God, this is by divine order that I would hear this talk. What do? I know get a copy of your book, but go ahead and tell us about the download stuff that you have that, a person can open up in a safe haven. You're at home, you're on the internet, you go there, and what are they going to see, John?
Yeah, you can go to addictionsurvivalexpert.com. We have a lot of information on our blog that we just put together after talking to you quite a few months back, Valerie, when we had the opportunity to say, hey, John, we need to do more here. We also have the book site of victoryandsurrender.com, which gives us a lot of information. But first thing I would suggest is, listen, if you're still practicing and serious about quitting, then don't worry about who's going to know. Because, you may end up in a box in the ground, and after that, the only people that are hurting this thing is the rest of the people that are still alive. This is a family disorder. There's no doubt about that. That person practicing their addiction has no idea of the people they're hurting around them that already know they got a problem. And us as the addicts, we're usually the last person to know. I would suggest going to a hospital. They're going to keep those medical records and things like that. They're not going to sit there and open up Pandora's box. They want to turn around and help you. I am a productive member of society today because I had the courage to ask for help. I didn't see it. I didn't think it. I didn't look at the rest of my life would be drug and alcohol free. I just looked at today. Just today. Don't pick up, don't use, don't drink. Just today. And if you go to a hospital, they got a whole litany in your area, meetings, recovery, they can assess the situation. And you know what? They're not going to run to mommy and daddy.
Okay.
Their job is to save
to help you
and save your life, because they know, everyone knows someone who is addicted to drugs or alcohol. Everyone knows somebody.
Isn't it the truth?
Isn't
it the truth? And it's not even like you noticed in the very beginning, we didn't even waste time to say what addiction is. Everybody knows what addiction is. Those are the kind of things you don't even need to explain. If you are hooked on something, you know you're addicted. So you don't need to
Absolutely.
get into these word games. Oh, what are they talking about? What does that mean? What does it look like? Everybody knows what addiction looks like. That is no secret to anybody anymore. What it looks like is a person that's struggling to get off of it. That's what it looks like, right?
Absolutely, absolutely. You hit the nail on the head.
Yeah.
And I really hope that everyone really reaches out, really to somebody suffering. That's the hard part. We all know somebody's suffering, but we really don't know how to, address it or, say, hey, listen, if you need help, you can go here. If you need help, you can call this person. If you need help online now, we have literally all kinds of ways that can really help you. But our job is really to reach our hand out and to help that person suffering. And I see today that that's why the grace of God has kept me, clean and sober this long, because there was a bigger picture. Everybody has a story, and someday that story that you're going to tell is going to save somebody's life and keep them from jumping in front of a train or putting a pistol in their head because they don't know how to stop this life of addiction that they're in.
Because addiction is a beast. And just like you said in your terminology, it's a demon, and you have to deal with this. You can't just let it go. So, John, I just don't take lightly, this time that we spent together covering all this. I just, our time is up now. And any final thoughts that you want to add on there? I know you've given out the information. You want to give it just one more time, just in case somebody missed it?
I would love to. You can go to our blog at addictionsurvivalexpert.com. You can go to our book site at victoryandsurrender.com. But please, get some help. And if your friend or family member you can go to those sites and you can contact me personally. I'll be more than happy to walk you through the steps of what we need to do. My job is to help other people keep from getting to the position that I was before I could no longer stop on my own.
All right. Awesome, John. So you're not alone in the addiction, and you will not be alone in the recovery process. Not with Mr. John King in the planet.
Thank you so much, Valerie.
John, we're going to wrap this up. It's been a real pleasure to have you on, and I look forward to many more talks with you. And on that note, I'm going to say I love you dearly.
I love you too, Valerie, and thank you for all your help and inspiration to all.
I appreciate you too. Goodbye, John.
Goodbye. Thank you so much.
Okay.
You have been listening to the Rich Flow of Life podcast with host Valerie Kanay. We're most appreciative you took the time to be with us, and thank you. For more action, go subscribe to Valerie Kanay Talks YouTube channel and like us on Facebook at Valerie Kanay Talks and follow us on Twitter at Valerie Kanay. Until next time, we love ya.